Hey, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara. This is Tuesday, the 13th of January, 2026, and we are well and truly in the new year now. Only 11 months to my birthday, you know, sir.
Oh, wow. Only 4 months to mine.
I presume. Well, I mean, exactly 11 months to my birthday, given it's the 13th today.
Okay.
So I'm presuming that, 10 months. I'm presuming that you've got something ready already.
Well, I'm planning it. I'm planning it as we speak.
You're planning it as we speak. Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. You know, see, if I don't get on your back and nobody gets it done, eh?
Remind me again in 6 months.
Yeah, okay. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. We are discussing the news every weekday morning, 7 a.m. So our live talk show is for the people of Niagara Falls, and well, it's kind of we sharing the news that matters to Niagara Falls. So, morning, Mike, by the way.
Oh, morning.
Yeah. And because he's always on early, he always catches us before we start. And so first point of call is Wiretaps sought the Colombian cocaine group discussing Venezuela's military cartel. They have their own cartel within the military, and they're called the Sun. What the hell are they called now? Sun Group.
The Suns.
Famous Suns.
The famous Suns, yeah.
Yeah.
Cartel of the Suns, actually.
Cartel of the
Suns. Well, press has dubbed them Cartel of the Suns, but
yeah.
But they're calling themselves the famous Suns, and that has to do with something to do with the military logo they have, and it's supposed to, and that's where that comes from. So Trump was right. Trump was right, according to this. Trump was right that there is a lot of drugs that go through to Venezuela. Not as much that comes out of anywhere else, though.
Yeah, and the particular one the CBC was highlighted was a broker who was trying to assure the client that the Venezuelan military would not steal his money or his load.
Yeah, so basically they're investigating. The CIA has tapped into communications between drug cartels and the military, the Venezuelan military. And it seems very evident there that elements of the military, you know, the famous Suns, will guarantee your shipment of cocaine across their territory and make sure that it gets on the ship. What?
For a nice little backhander, no doubt.
A little bit of bucksheesh, yes.
Yeah.
So do you want to? So the whole thing is that, yeah, of course, we're not going to let this happen. They're looking for safe transport of their cocaine through Venezuela onto a port. It's very unclear how much of the rest of the government's involved in this, or how many military officials are a part of it. It's obviously that a lot of people are aware of this. And this is interesting, too. It doesn't look like any of the cocaine is going to the United States. This particular shipment they were talking about here, where they were taking a bunch of cocaine and putting it in and among machinery.
And destined for Libya.
Yes, it's going to go to Libya.
Particular example, yeah. Yeah.
Now, obviously, from Libya, then it would be distributed mostly to Europe, probably from there, I presume, because that's where the biggest market would be. Maybe some in Cairo, maybe.
Yeah, Libya's not exactly a drug use country, are they? Not well known for that.
Well, yeah, and they're fairly poor, and the market wouldn't be all that great. But I mean, if they could come up with the money, I mean, drug lords will find any market for it.
Yeah. So it's likely a move on point, as you said, to Europe.
Yes. And it seems, and that's been the case from the very beginning with all the bombing of these drug boats. they're doing Europe, at least the ones in the Caribbean, they're doing Europe much more favor than they are doing the United States. Now, the stuff that was coming out of Colombia along the Pacific coast, yeah, that most likely would be coming to the United States or even Canada. But the stuff that was going, that Venezuela was moving, that was headed more towards Europe, and very minor on the scale of drugs anyway. So the very idea that Venezuela is moving drugs to poison the United States is wrong. They're out to poison Europe, basically.
Yeah,
that's where their market is. And a lot of it was going through Trinidad and Tobago too, and so the very premise that the drugs were coming out of there is true.
Yeah,
we don't know how much though. Although this sounds like
the one example
like this sounds like a very big transportation of an amount of cocaine. In realistic terms, how big is that compared to how much?
Yeah, they're talking in that one example where they got the wiretap. It's 32 kilos of cocaine in this machinery.
Yes,
which is not a lot, but is a significant shipment. It's still a significant shipment, but not a lot in the grand scheme of things.
No, that's pretty puny actually in the grand scheme of things. You hear about trucks being busted on the U.S. border with more than that in it, you know.
Yeah.
So although it would have been significant, somebody was going to make a lot of good money off of it, of course, but it's not headed toward the United States, number one, which doesn't really excuse it at all. So it is coming out of there, and it is connected to the military, which means it's probably, nudge, nudge, wink, wink to the other political figures in Venezuela.
Yeah.
So my point here is what has happened by taking Maduro out of the top. It hasn't changed any of this, which is going on.
Yeah.
None of this is going on. There is nobody else put out of government here. So these military officials are the same ones that are still allowing cocaine to move to ships and so on. They're still in place, right? So how is taking Maduro out of the top stop this drug trafficking?
It hasn't.
When nobody else has changed. Yeah,
it hasn't. And the question here is, whilst I was saying there was only 32 kilos on that one particular shipment, if they were to make it with shipments on a daily basis, that's significant amount of supply that's going through.
Well, I don't know if it was a daily basis or however.
On a frequent basis anyway, you know what I mean? If it were frequent, if it was on every shipment to Europe, then it's it's fairly significant.
Well, there is a lot of recreational drugs out there. There just is. It's availability. Yeah. When London officials would every once in a while they go into the sewage discharge of London and collect samples of sewage to see what kind of diseases that might be coming up within the population of London. So what they found, though, as a sort of a consequence of this, is what they discovered was the spike in recreational drugs over the weekend. So when they're going down in the sewers and taking samples, looking for diseases and things like that might be going to affect London area residents, what they find is a big jump in recreational drugs over the weekend, and it dies down on Monday or so. And so that tells you that there's lots of ready drugs to be had at any time, basically, if it spikes up every weekend.
Yeah. All right.
And that's by evidence of, undeniable evidence from people's refuse.
Yeah. Well, and actually, that's interesting that what you say about what's washed into the water supply, because of course, everybody goes into the bathroom, whether you're clean or drunk or using drugs.
Yeah. So So that tells you that the appetite is insane, and this is just for weekend users.
Yeah,
right there. As part of their routine, take a line of blow or something when they go to the dance.
Yeah,
so the drug market is safe because the average person just goes out and buys it and doesn't really think of the consequences of where that drug came from.
And of course, part of that would also be alcohol rises at the weekends as well, and that sort of thing.
But that's what you expect to happen.
Yeah, you would expect that. Yes, exactly.
Right. But anyway, to go back to the Venezuelan. So basically, Trump was right, and I don't think too many denied. It was a drug transit area. It's just the volume that he said and where it was going. So Venezuela's drug trade, where they allow it to go across the famous sons, basically the military allow it to go through the country and be put on ships for a cut of the action.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly it looks as if it's going to Europe. And according to everybody else, it's much more minor than places like Colombia. Now, Colombia's got a very good, it's got a democratic government, and it's trying very hard. It cooperates very much with the West and other countries with drugs. But the appetite for drugs is so incredible that it is really hard to stop cocaine producers in South America, because there's a jungle area. They can pop these little factories up here and there and everywhere, protect them. You have to go in. You take your life in your hands, to take it out. And there's so much money being made, and there's so many kickbacks along the way. It's really, really difficult. And I heard this the other day too. Finally, I heard it on U.S. News when I was looking at different news videos. Someone finally said what we say here all the time. It's the appetite for the drugs. You are not going to stop the drugs. You're not going to stop the fentanyl. You're not going to stop the cocaine or the heroin, because of the incredible appetite that we in the West have for drugs.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't face that core issue, you'll never see the end of drugs. I mean, you could go and kill. Let's say back in the 1920s, you could have killed Al Capone, but Bugs Moran would have taken over the job and brought booze in. And if you killed Bugs Moran, Legs Diamond would have, or whatever these gangsters were named back then. And it was just always somebody else will find a way of bringing them in. The big issue is the use. Why are you why people are being poisoned and drugged and so many hundreds, thousands die every year of drug overdoses is because of the appetite for the drug.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. All right. Okay. Moving on. Welland's kit steel company is going to be receiving about $650,000 of federal aid through the Regional Tariff Response Initiative, which is part of a broader $3.4 million federal investment across 4 Canadian steel companies aimed to modernize and boost competitiveness while these shifts in tariff are going on.
Yeah, I kind of like this, but on the other hand, this is taxpayer money that we're using to bolster the local companies. How long is this going to last? How long do we expect this to last? Of course, we don't know yet, because the mad orangutan down south of us is always trying to bully us and force us and change their minds, and on whims of will change his mind about tariffs. So we don't know where we stand with the
one thing, of course, about Venezuela has been that in the last and speculation over Greenland, etc., has been that Trump has been quiet for about a month now on tariffs. We've been on a tariff status quo. You know, I'm not saying it's good news. I'm just saying it. Often, no news is actually good news.
He'll just start beaking off again.
He will.
He'll start. Right now, I think what's quieted him about the tariffs right now more than anything is because the Supreme Court is determining whether or not it's legal for him to do that.
Yeah.
Under the emergency measures thing that he's been doing it under, what is likely going to happen, even though it's MAGA 6-3. 6 of the justices seem to be MAGA and letting Trump get away with just about anything. On this particular issue, they're going to have to make a decision based on the Constitution. And they may not be able to support Trump then as much as they might like to, because it's pretty clear that he's abusing his authority on that particular issue. If they do not, and that is what everybody expects, there's going to be some kind of break on that. And I think that more than anything, more than the Venezuela thing, is the thing that's stopping him beaking off about tariffs every 10 seconds.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. And the other question here, of course, is the criminal probe that Trump wants to do into the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, which we'll talk about later.
Well, what about the steel? Let's get back to the steel. Like we're talking about the steel there.
I know. Yeah, I was just saying that we'll be talking about Jerome Powell in the next, that administration attack on Jerome Powell next.
We'll swing back to that. Yeah, well, let's finish the one article before we move on to that.
Basically, with this, it basically means that they're a family-owned reinforcement. They're a rebar manufacturer, right? Located in Welland, and they will receive about $650,000 worth of aid. And the funds are intended to help the business modernize production infrastructure, increase efficiency and reach more customers and stay competitive in the market.
Yeah,
which is a good thing anyway, because competitiveness is not just aimed at the US market, it's aimed at any market that you happen to get it into, right? That'd be Canadian, that would be European, that would be whoever you're selling to.
It's not likely that we'll be selling too much outside of North America.
Oh, granted,
but it could happen. It could happen, and but the main thing here is everybody's going to need help. Any company that is suffering under U.S. tariffs is going to have to survive somehow.
Yeah,
and so the government is there's a $1 billion, I guess, they got out there to help companies that are being hurt because of tariffs. Remember, I think about 80% of our trade with the U.S. really is in touch with it, at least item-wise. But you get things like steel and cars and even nickel and aluminum, which you think that's dumb because they don't have enough. So what's the point of putting tariffs on those when the U.S. can't produce as much as they need? It's like dumb. But you see that it's just a political thing. Those are the kind of things that the U.S. Supreme Court's going to decide on. But in the meantime, here people in Canada are going to need some kind of relief from the orangutans' utterings.
Well, there is other companies involved in this as well. So Steelcon Fabrication from St. Catharines and Welland will receive about $1 million for automated structural steel and joint fabrication shop. Havelock Steel from Peterborough is part of a $3.4 million total investment. And Titus Steel from Mississauga is also part of that same $3.4 million investment.
Yes, because they're Canadian steel producers, and they traded with the U.S. which is kind of weird to me too. Why this is even happening? Because we probably take more steel from the U.S. than the steel companies here sell to the U.S.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what the balance is, but it's a back and forth thing.
well, you'd know
we buy
that.
steel, they buy steel.
Yeah, you'd know that market better than I would.
Well, the way I understand it is that certain steel companies make certain kinds of steel. So if you want weathering steel, if you drive down the Niagara Parks, you'll see these rusty bridges along the trails along the river there, like between Queenston and Niagara on the Lake. So you drive along and you see these rusty, but they are rusty, but that's because they're made out of weathering steel.
Yeah.
And that's a particular kind of steel. It's a kind of a steel that rusts, but doesn't continue to rust. Once it has a coating of rust, doesn't continue to coat like other kind of steel. It coats itself with rust and thereafter doesn't oxidize anymore.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be painted. Yeah. It doesn't have to be painted. Now that's not made here in Ontario.
Yeah. I know the bridges you mean. And there's actually the cycle bridge across the canal on Whirlpool Road also has that same type of steel as well.
Yeah, it's weathering steel, so it never has to be painted.
Yeah,
and that's the whole point of it. It gets rusty and never have to be painted. It's an environmental thing too, you know. So once it's there, it's going to be there for hundreds of years because it won't rust through. And it's a lot cheaper than putting stainless. Yeah, but it's just the fact I think it looks nicer than stainless because stainless would be too shiny and kind of the rusty brown color kind of fits in with the environment.
Well, actually, rusty brown color, very natural, very like nature, right?
Yeah,
I actually
saw. The whole point here is that we won't be making that here in Ontario, but we may have a kind of a stainless or a certain kind of steel that they don't produce down there.
Yeah.
And so that's basically, okay, you want my kind of steel and I want your kind of steel. Let's trade.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
And wouldn't, like the U.S. mills wouldn't kick in to make the kind of steel that was being made in here in Ontario if they could just trade to get it.
Yeah.
Now that's being changed in the States because one of the things that is easily kicked that back into production is steel mills. And that's the real issue here. One thing the U.S. cannot make up is aluminum, and they can't make up the nickel. They can't make up a lot of the copper either, but we don't have a huge amount that we sell to them of copper. But what they can do is get their old steel mills going again. So that's the real threat to the steel companies here.
Yeah.
And so they need a little bit of survivability help. And as I pointed out at the beginning,
that's what these
it is taxpayer money.
Yeah, that's what these funds are all about anyway. Survival help, making sure that the companies are more competitive. And you're right. That primarily we've been focused upon the US, but it's up to government and industry to also develop other markets.
Yeah, that's not going to be easy.
Oh, I know it's not going to happen tomorrow, but it must happen over time.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what the whole Carney thing is all about, is establishing province-to-province markets, which we hadn't done very well in all their history so far.
Yeah.
And so we were competing province to province instead of cooperating province to province. And the other thing is to find other international markets. And we see Carney in China right now, basically, and he's really on a bunch of eggshells there because the Chinese put a big, huge tariffs on canola oil and stuff like that from the West. At the same time, they are pushing Carney to drop the tariffs on Chinese electric cars, and Ford is saying, don't you dare do that. Don't you dare. Because he's trying to protect the electric car industry here in Ontario. I don't know what Carney's going to come up with. It seems like an impossible task to me. How are you gonna get the Chinese enough back on side to trade with them?
I don't know that. I don't know that, considering everything that's gone on with China and Canada, that China's a viable option. But I do want to hear what his proposals are, and we haven't really, other than it being talked about, we haven't really had any details.
He's just got an enormous amount of but the Chinese market is incredibly huge.
Yes.
What you want to do is get into that market as best you can, because anybody in the know, it seems to me, when of course, I'm not very knowledgeable about economics, but what I gather is the Chinese economy now is all based on exports, and the whole world is pushing China to develop its domestic market. And the domestic market is not what it should be for a country as prosperous as China is right now, because China keeps its yuan devalued so that it can make more money on exports.
Yeah.
But that means the people in China are held to a lower standard of living as the yuan is held down.
Yeah.
And the Chinese, the United States makes most of its revenue with its domestic actions.
Well,
and China makes most of its money by its exports. So what the world is trying to convince China of is use your domestic market for your revenue, as other nations do. You'll make a lot of money there, and then you'll be a lot more trusted as a trading partner thereafter, because right now all you're looking to do is steal everybody's jobs. You want to make all the vacuums, you want to make all the cars, you want to make everything, and we don't like that. And you're always going to get resistance. Why don't you open up your domestic market? So if Carney's smelling this right, he'll know that the Chinese will have to open up their domestic market a little bit more. And if that is the case, that is going to be even a bigger market for Canadian goods.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So moving on. Moving on. Sorry, to the next article. High-level Trump administration criticism triggers a criminal probe of the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. So that he's in the crossfires right now, but this is actually getting, like, lawmakers in the U.S. Senate are opposing this. Notably two Republicans, Lisa Murkowski and Tom Tillis, who don't like what's going on, as well as other, Federal Reserve leaders slamming this whole concept.
Yeah. So what Trump has done here, he claims he doesn't know anything about it, that the DOJ has done this on their own. That's a bunch of baloney. They are doing his will, but they haven't exactly come to him and say, today we're going to go after Powell. Pretty much he made it very, very well known to the DOJ, get Powell in any kind of way you can. He's weaponizing the Department of Justice, which is very, very chilling. Yeah. And even the Republicans, who are sycophantic and can't and fall over themselves to lick the boots of Trump because they're so afraid of him, even they are standing up to this. They are so afraid of that guy. They can't do anything. They yes boss, three bags full boss kind of thing. Even they're standing up to this, because if the Fed loses its independence, then the trust in the American economy is gone.
Yes. Yeah.
For over 100 years, the Fed has been, it goes way back more than, I think, 130 years. The Fed has been independent of the government.
Yeah. And this whole question about this whole question about Fed and and its independence. I think that it's vital that it stays independent, and that's been part and parcel of America's strength. But I don't think Trump knows that.
He doesn't care. What he wants to do is he wants to drop the interest rates big time before the election, before the next election.
Yeah.
He as soon as he got elected, he realizes his next challenge will be the midterms.
Yeah.
And he sees historically the midterms go to the party that's not in
the opposing party. Yeah.
And right now he's really messed things up pretty bad. So he's trying to fix the midterms. So he's had Texas gerrymander their districts and hope to get 5 more seats. Right now, Florida's already heavy gerrymandered towards Republican seats are being gerrymandered some more. Some of the other states are gerrymandering, some are refusing. California there is just done kind of a gerrymander of its own to counter the gerrymander of Texas. So that's not going to work so well for him, but he does know from the very beginning economy means everything. So if he could get his grasp on get power over the Fed, then he can bring down the interest rates before the election, and there will be a flurry of activity. And if he does that, there will be a flurry of good news to the economy, because it will cause an inflation, but it will cause an inflation a year later. In the meantime, everybody, it looks really good for everybody. Everybody goes out and borrows money.
Everybody votes because of Trump bringing inflation down. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not going to bring down inflation. What it's going to do is going to make borrowing money much cheaper. So what will happen, as many people who can will borrow money at the very low rates. And then, however, that will cause inflation to spike high. And but that will be a year later. And meantime, he's still in government. So he can blame somebody else for that. He can blame Joe Biden 10 years from now for the bad economy or whatever. But he's always got that pointing someone. So basically, it's very dangerous. Even the Republicans.
If not Biden, then Obama, right?
Yeah. There's a couple other things he's doing too. Some very populist things. He's said that he's going to reduce the interest rates on credit cards. Okay, bravo. Yeah. That sounds good to me. But that's not how it works. The banks run that. And what the banks are going to do then is going to take people off the credit cards they don't think that are suitable. One of the reasons why the banks have like 30% interest rates, or even 20%. Well, I don't know what went to 30%, but I do know it's around 20% most of the time. One of the reasons why they do have that is because they pretty much give everybody a credit card, and even people with bad credit.
Yeah.
And one of the ways they do that is they make sure that that you pay huge interest rates so that they can make a return on all the money they do lose from people defaulting from their bills. So that's their logic. We tried here in Ontario to bring down the interest rate in Ontario. It came to a vote in Ontario legislature, a free vote. Everybody in the legislature voted for reduced interest rates except one member. And if you have only one member against that kind of a vote, it has to be unanimous. Then it didn't carry through. So it gave every politician ability to put their hand up and say, yeah, that's a good idea, all while knowing that one of their members is going to turn it down and they don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
So that sounds good on the outside, but what the banks say they're going to do is just kind of cancel everybody's card they think is a risk.
Yeah. Yeah. So in fact, it won't, those people who are at the most risk will not have access to credit anyway.
Yeah, apparently that this is kind of like essential. You go to the Johnny Cash places or the paycheck, whatever they're called. You go there and you get your money and you pay a big interest rate on it. I guess they're the modern day pawn shop, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where people used to you used to hear stuff like, you know, a lady would take her blender in, you know, or her blender into the pawn shop, you know, get $5 for it, and then come back a week later and pay $6 to get it back, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a good place to get some a loan in the meantime when you needed money. So that's a good idea. But the new pawn shop kind of thing is that corner store money kind of cash thing. They say that it's a bit of essential because a lot of people need quick money and run out of money, and the credit's no good.
You know, the funny thing is about cash money is, you know, those kind of payday loan stuff is payday loans only work for certain people, and you've got to actually have a job.
Yeah, there's I don't know. No, that's not true. That's not true.
Well, a self-employed person can't go there.
Maybe not, but
somebody on ODSP can, because they get an ODSP check on
I guess that's what I'm thinking of, because I know a lot of people that don't have jobs and they're getting behind on that.
Yeah, no, they're leveraging their ODSP check, but it's the same basic thing as, you know, because what you're saying is, you know, that on the last day of the month in January, you're going to get your ODSP check. I can borrow against it right now.
Yes.
You know.
So So if you have a source of income, whatever it is, the interest rate's going to be high, and I don't know. It's the marketplace. I guess what is the marketplace? Like if you are a bad driver and you get a lot of accidents and stuff, your interest or your payment, your insurance payment goes up and up and up, right? And the same thing, I guess, if your credit rating is low, then your interest rate's high, because that's the hedge against losing, taking you on as a risk. But in any case, if we get back to because that was an offshoot of the Powell thing.
Yeah.
And so basically the kind of things that Trump wants to do here with the Fed is to intimidate it. And we find that the Fed is being victimized now by the DOJ going after the Fed. And these are trumped up, and pun intended, trumped up charges. He says he knows nothing about that. That's a big lie, because he's given instructions to his DOJ to go after people before. It's almost like sometimes it's right there on his Truth Social. Now he's told Powell every kind of name under the book, called him an imbecile, called him a low IQ, call him slow and stupid. Jay Powell is one of the most respected economists out there. He's worked for 4 different presidents, Democratic and Republican. He's got a long history. He's made a few mistakes. The Fed as a whole. Remember, he's just the chairman, but the Fed as a whole has made a couple of mistakes. I think they made a mistake in during Biden times, because I don't think they anticipated the effects of COVID, the economic effects of COVID as well as they should have. So that's made Powell much more cautious sometimes, because that caused some more inflation that they had to bring down. Mm-hmm. We do remember there was a huge interest spike way back in I think it was Nixon's time, or maybe no, it was in the 80s there, where they had to put it up 15% or something like that to bring down inflation that's got out of hand. The independence of the Fed is very, very important.
Well,
what Trump has done here, what the DOJ is doing here, is they're going after him. They're going after him for buildings that got cost overruns on them. So they're going to indict the Fed, Chairman Powell, the Fed, for buildings, the brand new Fed buildings in Washington got out of hand financially. They got behind. And they were overpriced. That's what they're saying. That the cost overruns are incredible. It's bad management. It's either, of course, the implication is partly it might be due to corruption. It might be due to mismanagement, or a combination of both. Mm-hmm. If we look at that, when Trump tried the gotcha moment on Powell the last time, where he took him to a building that was being continually built, and he brought out a letter to see, and Powell said, well, this is a letter that goes back to 2019. It's got nothing to do with now. So that gotcha moment didn't work. But that's probably just made Trump more annoyed. And he's trying to implicate that he's trying to find anything he can dump on him, like that real estate stuff they tried on Schiff and a few others. They dig around and look for the most minor of things. And in this particular case, they're indicting him on cost overruns on buildings. They say that are too extravagant, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. We'll see about that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So moving on. Ontario's primary care action plan is 1 year. There's a 1 year progress action for their action plan. Progress report. I mean, sorry. 1 year progress doesn't mean a thing. 1 year progress report does. Okay. So the idea, basically, back in February of 24, they announced 110 million to connect up to 328,000 people to primary care providers. And they've had some success in doing so.
Yeah, Go on. It looks like they have.
So the 110 million created 78 new and expanded primary care teams. Now, many of these are now fully operational, serving over 490,000 people. So they passed the target of the 328. And they're basically implementing the largest medical school education expansion in more than a decade. That's a good thing.
It's kind of interesting. I like to know where those doctors are coming from. Or is it now that the doctors that used to have 5,000 clients now have 10,000? It's the same amount of doctors, and you're going to go and still have as much trouble as ever getting on to see a doctor.
Yeah.
You may not have had a doctor and had to go to the clinic or the hospital. Now you do have a doctor, but you're going to be sitting in their office as long as you're going to be sitting in the clinic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the thing that bothers me here. It doesn't tell you that there's more doctors, does it?
Well, yeah, but getting more doctors is not a thing. You can't just, click your fingers and they're there tomorrow. That's just not going to happen. You do have to provide more, training for doctors, more education paths for doctors, more training hospitals, et cetera, So those things take expansion over time. They're not something.
Yeah, but where is the extra care coming from? So that's my point.
Well, there is another.
Have we been successful enough in attracting enough doctors from overseas?
Yeah, fair question. Right. And part of that comes from also nurse practitioners who are already in the system, who are actually allowed to do more than they had done in the past. So they've got, many nurse practitioners can now effectively be your local GP.
It doesn't say that here, though.
It doesn't, but that has been the case for quite some time.
Yeah, but is it? It says here they're connected with a doctor, doesn't it?
they don't have to always be connected with the doctor. Basically, okay, so in terms of medical
primary care, they say about 275,000 be attached to primary care. So what denotes primary care?
Yeah, okay. That's, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question. Yeah, they're talking about medical school expansion here. In more than a decade, adding 340 undergraduate seats and over 550 postgraduate positions over 5 years. That's what their aim is.
Says here that it says here the Auditor General has found that the list is underutilized, with just 11% of people in need of a primary care provider on it, and fewer than 10% of the family doctors enrolling patients from that list. So you're talking about family doctors there. They're not talking about nurse practitioners.
Yeah, okay.
So, so the primary health care, it just says healthcare connect. It doesn't say, as a matter of fact, you might be right, because it doesn't say too often that it's directly to a doctor, but that was a direct reference to doctors there.
Yeah.
So what does healthcare primary healthcare connect?
Well, they've announced 4.2 million in expanded nursing education across the province. An additional 56 million was committed in August of 25 to train another 2,200 nurses.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna ask AI.
Well, fair. I've opened what I did is I opened the Ontario.ca primary care action plan progress report. Right.
I just asking what primary care means in Ontario. It is the first point of contact for non-emergency health care, care functions, preventative care. So there'd be preventative care, diagnosis. So it means a lot of different things. Mental health, primary care providers, clinicians, family physicians, and nurse practitioners are the lead clinicians and allied health professionals, that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. So it does look as if it will connect you with a nurse practitioner, but how do you know a nurse practitioner is the person you want to see? If I got a cut on my leg, I'll go to a nurse practitioner. She can clean it and throw a few stitches into it. But if I've got like aches and pains and things like kind of don't know what's going on, I want a doctor. I don't want a nurse practitioner. Yeah, if I broke my arm, I go to a nurse practitioner. Yeah, she'll probably be able to set it. She knows how to do that. Cold, that kind of thing. I don't know if she's got the ability.
But again, nurse practitioners in primary care is different, because if you break your arm, you're going to the hospital, which is not primary care.
Well, if you're up north or something like that and you can't get to the hospital, a nurse could probably set your arm, you know?
Yeah, that's different, because in fact, actually up north, those clinics are probably more than just primary care anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but again, developing new teams is a good thing, you know, and we can basically criticize who's in the team, but you know, it is important that we develop new teams, right? So they're basically saying, according to Canadian Institutes for Health, Ontario leads the country with access to regular healthcare providers. That sounds like good news.
Yeah, it sounds like, yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I've got this. I actually went to I've taken that link and I went straight through to actually the Ontario page, the actual report on the page.
Well, there you go. So there's some positive news there. They say they had a really long backlog of people with no primary care givers, and they got to knock down that list. So they've been working on that. And part of this, which sounds to me is very, very kind of like a really unorganized system, whereas there is a dearth of healthcare facilities and doctors and nurse practitioners, but there's also a lot of mismanagement going on prior to this, where there was a lot of people who could have been connected to primary care that weren't, because they're stuck in the system. They can't look outside itself. And somebody's come along and sorted that out, probably under the push of the Auditor General, who saw huge inefficiencies.
Yeah. And so the percentage of Canadians who report having access to a regular health provider is across Canada 82.6. And even though we may criticize what we've got in Ontario as being subpar, we are the best province in the country at 88.5% having a primary care provider. Quebec, for example, is at 74.1%. So
well, they're going to have a harder time attracting outside doctors because they're a French enclave. So and because of their language priorities. So if you get a guy that comes from Kenya, let's say a doctor comes from Kenya and he wants to come to Canada, and he sees this nice place called Quebec, but the Quebec government says, well, yeah, you got to be able to speak English, or French, and all your documents will be in French, and there's not going to be any bilingual documents for you to read. And when you set up your office, you got to all put it in French. And he says, well, I speak my local language. I speak English. So I guess I can't come to you. I'll go to Ontario or any other.
He's going to go Ontario, Manitoba, Alberta, BC, or any other place in Canada that speaks English.
He's going to go to any. He even could go to places in New Brunswick that are half French, half English, and he'd be just fine because most of the New Brunswickers also speak English.
Yeah,
and they're a lot more fun though. The New Brunswick, whether they're English or French, they're a lot of fun.
Okay.
I worked with some French New Brunswickers. Man, you're laughing all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know that we're leading Canada at the moment in terms of access to healthcare providers. 88% being with patients. We still got a long way to go, and I think everybody involved in this will admit that.
Yes, indeed. So the message here is, it looks like it's getting better. Something that's been a problem for a very long time looks like it's getting better, and it's partly efficiencies and partly taking up trying to improve the amount of service out there, amount of doctors, nurse practitioners, but it's also a matter of cleaning up the organization. It seems that it was the organization was not being run too efficiently, and how shocking that is to find out that a government organization was not run efficiently.
Yeah.
Oh my, how shocked I am to hear that.
Yeah. Okay, so basically they're saying that the province is on track to attach every Ontario resident to a primary care provider by 2029. I do hope that's the case. I rather suspect we're going to have trouble in Northern Ontario, but
yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. We're even going to have trouble
in the right direction. Yeah.
Look, we're buying doctors, basically. We're buying doctors. And, look, if you come here, you're going to get $100,000 signing bonus, that kind of thing. So that's what different communities here are doing in Ontario. And the northern communities can't compete with that kind of thing. Well, but I like John Ringo Beam's idea of the government establishing the offices and all that, and taking all that load away from the doctors. Get them an office, get them a secretary, get them a receptionist.
I like that idea. Yeah.
So it's a turnkey operation. Yeah. So a new doctor comes into the area, right? No matter where he's from, whether he's from Nairobi, South Africa, Venezuela, wherever he's coming from, and he or she can walk into that building, turnkey operation, sit down at a desk, and take the first patient almost immediately because everything's all set up.
And especially we need that type of approach in places like Northern Ontario, where it's even more challenging. But again, we also, for Northern Ontario, I think that what we need to do is we need to put the skilled and the knowledgeable, local community into being in learning the healthcare education, getting that whole process going for medical people within the indigenous community.
Oh, that's going to be tough because the indigenous communities sometimes are remote. And not only that, I've talked to a coworker whose daughter works up there with the indigenous, makes huge money going up there, but they have to go in waves. They go in for a while, then they come out because it is so discouraging, the health needs of the people and the way they abuse themselves. And the ignorance they find that's very hard. So you get a brand new doctor coming in, let's say from Europe or someplace or anywhere, and they go into an environment that is just heart-wrenching. You're not going to get the guy to stay there very long.
No, I'm just saying the people who will stay will be the indigenous. If there are indigenous doctors, they're more likely to stay in those communities.
I doubt it very much. They would go where you could get money. A few of them would. We find that doctors, like there's been when I was in Ghana, so doctors, young doctors leave the country with the expectation of coming back and working at least 5 years in the country. Most of the time they only last a year and they're back into the West. They leave the country forever, even though the whole idea was to have them come back and work at least 5 years in the country of their origin. They just run into too many obstacles. And as far as the indigenous, there's just going to be not enough people there. You're going to have to find the people who can qualify for medical education, first of all. And I don't know. The thing that I can see is teams cycling in and cycling back out again. So if you're a doctor in, let's say, in, I don't know, maybe Sault Ste. Marie or something up there, or Sudbury, you may be enticed to cycle into the more rural areas, maybe get in a big medical tractor trailer basically and drive across from community and or just stay in a community so many days.
Like a Doctors Without Borders type thing?
Yeah, kind of thing, like the Australian Flying Doctor, basically fly into different communities that way. But in here they'd be driving or flying, and it would have to be set up that way.
Yeah, with one or two trucks, you take a mobile clinic north, right? Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right? And you basically you drop off the containers, you operate in a community for 3 months, and then you pick up those containers and move on to another location.
The other thing is set up different clinics, space them out as well as you can, and cycle the doctors in and out, because you're not going to keep the doctors there. But if you pay them extra, you can cycle them in for a week, and then the next guy comes for a week, and the next guy. So you might only have to stay 1 week every 2 months. Yeah, something like that. As long as you've got 9 other doctors doing the same thing.
That's a possibility. That's always a possibility. Yeah. All right. Okay. So we've come to the end of the program on that. Although there is one further article which we'll pick up tomorrow.
Yes. Anyway, I'll mention Gaza again right now. I guess they're trying to get the children back to school. And of course, you can imagine they're trying to teach the kids in rubble and all that other stuff. But kids are very resilient. But while this is going on, the Israelis are still shooting up the place pretty bad all around the yellow line there.
Yeah.
And they're just doing what they want to do. And unfortunately, ordinary everyday people are in the middle of it. They go after who they think is a Hamas fighter, and they kill 10 people. And they don't even be sure they got the right guy. It's just that they're just like their super precision is suddenly not any longer super precision work anymore. They could take one guy out in Iran in his house and kill him, and yet when it comes to Gaza, they have to kill 10 people to get one. Tell me what that's all about.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's pretty bad, really. All right. And Dave?
Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace, everyone.
Yep.